eastern Kentucky, we are fortunate to have massive amount of land, vast amount of land, large landowners, and lots of wildlife. We have the opportunity to bring some wildlife species back to Kentucky that haven't existed here in over 150 years.
The elk restoration in Kentucky started in 1997 when the first 7 elk from Kansas were released. Over the next 5 years, Kentucky released over 1,500 elk. We paid for the whole project. Glad we did. It's just been an amazing success. After calves hit the ground in the spring of 2008, we're going to have about 7,300 elk on the ground.
So we're already the largest elk state east of the Rocky Mountains. We're in the top 10 elk states in the country, and that includes states like Colorado and Wyoming and Utah that have large elk populations.
The largest elk herd east of the Mississippi, and they're just doing wonderfully. We're very proud of the effort of the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, along with the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife, and the efforts that they've done to make this a very successful program for the mountains.
What makes this area so unique and so phenomenal as an elk viewing area? Elk are grazers, and they feed on clovers and orchard grass and other grasses and forbs like that. And this area is phenomenal in that when they got through mining, they reclaimed it in an elk-friendly manner.
We suspect that we will have a world record elk in eastern Kentucky within the next 5 years. There are no natural predators in the mountains of eastern Kentucky, and the winters aren't as harsh as the western part of this country, so they're growing very rapidly. The largest elk herd east of the Mississippi, and they're just doing wonderfully.
Probably 2 or 3 times a year that I'd recommend going to see elk, and each time you go you're going to see different things. If you start in late August and go through late October, it's during the rut. They're very visible during this time. The bulls are bugling, they're fighting, they're sparring, they're chasing cows, they're tending harems. It's probably the most fun time to go see elk because the bulls are screaming. And if you've never heard an elk bugle, you have to hear it, you have to see it. And there's places in East Kentucky where you can get on a ridge top and hear 10 bulls at one time.
Well, bugling is the mating call of the elk, and that's how the bulls announce that they're large and fit and ready to mate with cows, and it's how they tell their fitness. And what it sounds like is it starts with a real low guttural sound, and then it'll go up through the scale. It'll go just like, except it'll go on a little farther. And then they'll break down into chuckling. They'll go, and when you get several of the bulls out there bugling together, they'll really turn each other on, and it'll just fill the hollers full of the sound.
In the winter is another good time to see elk, particularly in December, January, February, and March, because that's when they get in big herds. And it's not uncommon to see a herd of anywhere from 30 to 100 elk at a time. So you can see really big herds. You can see big bachelor groups of bull elk. Late June and July can be kind of neat too, because that's after calves have been born. Most of them have been born. And the cows get into nursery groups. You'll get all the cows with calves in a certain area will get into a herd, and it's almost as if the cows take turns keeping an eye out for the kids. So you might see a herd of 15 to 20 animals with half of them being calves, and that's fun to see. And then of course in the summer you need to go early and late. In the wintertime you can see elk sometimes all day long, and then during the rut a lot of times it's all day long. You can see the bulls out looking for cows. We've got 3 state parks now that offer elk tours. You can see this many elk in the eastern United States. That's pretty rare. But what we also have found that on these tours, people are very surprised at what they see on the reclaimed mine lands.
You can't have elk in eastern Kentucky or anywhere in Kentucky unless you have 5% pasture land. Without mountaintop removal and mining, we would only have 3% pasture land. With the coal industry and mining, we have 7% pasture land. So elk are thriving in eastern Kentucky in association with coal mining and the reclaimed lands of eastern Kentucky.
The landscapes and the habitat created by the surface mining and reclamation process really made the elk restoration possible. When somebody goes to East Kentucky and they go looking at elk and they go riding up on these mine sites, they need to be aware of the fact that just about everywhere you see a hill or a ridge with grass on it or grassy cover, that's a reclaimed coal mine.
Without mountaintop removal, we would have no flat land in eastern Kentucky. Our hospital in Hazard, Kentucky is on a mountaintop removal site. Our airports in many places in the mountains of eastern Kentucky are because of mountaintop removal sites. My home personally is on a mountaintop removal site, and there are a lot of subdivisions that are going into these areas, a lot of shopping centers that are being developed on mountaintop removal sites. All of those aspects are available to us only because of mountaintop removal and the mining industry. So many positives have come from the coal industry that we just don't really think about that we would not have without coal mining. Certainly we wouldn't have elk because you have to have the pasture land. And the future holds for us that some of these more remote reclaimed lands can be used for adventure tourism.
Adventure tourism is the hot buzzword right now in a lot of this part of the world, which includes ATVs, horseback riding, hiking, wildlife viewing. It includes hunting. But because of the coal mining industry, we have these very large tracts of land that are undeveloped and that are wild. These types of lands can support an adventure tourism industry. So Southeast Kentucky has something really unique to offer, and really it's an undiscovered jewel right now.
Imagine a day when people will come to Kentucky, all areas of Kentucky, for a day, a weekend, a week, or maybe even a month, and do what they love to do outdoors, and travel across the state and enjoy that, and enjoy the beauty of the mountains and enjoy the beauty of the wildlife that we have here in Kentucky that's unique to Kentucky. We can be a frontier to adventure tourism, and we're going to be a frontier to adventure tourism.